7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We are back in studio, myself and Tony Johnson. We've got Token Tony on the phone because he's too lazy to get his ass up to the studio. What's up, gentlemen? Another weekday afternoon. It's Super Bowl week. It's really here. You get that first week where it's like, oh, we're still talking about the championship games. But now, both teams are in Atlanta. Both teams have done their opening ceremonies, as you call it, and we are it's this Thursday podcast. We are Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days away from the big game. Tony Johnson is in studio. What's up, Tony?
Not too much. As you said, it's the anticipation. The second week is always the one I think people get the most amped up for because this 2-week break always sucks. So when we're within a week, it's a good thing for sure.
And then we got Token Tony on the line. Token, as a Lions fan who obviously doesn't witness his team in Super Bowls, look, as a Pats fan, I get jazzed up, but does the rest of the league fan base get jazzed up as much for nine appearances, not consecutive, but 9 appearances in the Super Bowl like we do, or are you guys just ready to change the narrative?
I think overall as a whole, a lot more people are starting to respect the Patriots now, so, they're just kind of used to it now. Should be interesting to see what happens, and should be a hell of a game, so.
Yeah, because for me, look, as a fan of a team who is good, and again, they're not. I was when I went to school and I was a fan. Like Florida State was a bad team, then they became good with Jameis Winston, and now they're bad again. You expect your team to be very cyclical. It's not the case with the Patriots, but with a lot of other teams that at least I root for, and I'm sure you guys root for, and unfortunately, the Lions aren't really cyclical. They're just bad always. But it's crazy to think, you have to step back, you take your Patriots hat off and just say, like you said, what they're doing in the era of free agency, coming and going, superstars running, trying to run franchises, etc. It's just amazing that the my way or the highway approach actually still works in some spots.
No, I think that's the right approach, at least with this organization, how it should be, so.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think that, everybody's always saying, Tony, the Patriot way, the Patriot way, the Patriot way. And it doesn't seem like any franchise in today's era, they say we want to win, but you can see the clear-cut picture of what winning takes, and they don't do that.
Well, I think it's important to use a Matt Nagy reference, who I know a lot of Bears fans have really latched onto. Is he writes all over Halas Hall and even on his play call sheet, "Be you."
Be you.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to understand what your personality is and what you bring to the table is what's most important, and to try to emulate somebody else or be
that's what got you hired.
Exactly, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't take small things here and there from other coaches and other staffs you've worked on. Absolutely, you should build, always be building to get better. But I think to try to pigeonhole yourself into being like one organization, where this organization certainly is going to do things differently. They have a different owner, they have a different fan base, they have there's just different things going on. No matter how you slice it, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to put yourself fully in the shoes of another team. And while I understand that, again, there are probably certain aspects of what you can take and not take. I think we're seeing it, really early on with Matt Patricia in Detroit, who I haven't and won't be a fan of the hire anyway. But from what it seems like and from what we've heard, he's trying to take too much from his previous employer and put it into a city and a team that is really kind of on the total opposite end, Detroit, versus New England. So I just don't think it's going to work in that sense. And being independent and doing your own thing, I think, will work best in the long haul.
It's fair enough. That's a fair assessment. Also, I think it's hard to say for sure, but you wonder if success would come with the territory of where your franchise is located. There's not a lot of superstars dying to jet up to New England or Detroit or Green Bay, Wisconsin to play in these markets. It seems like a lot of these success of, let's move Detroit out of that. A lot of the success of Green Bay and New England has obviously been the quarterback position. But even to give credit, like you said, to Belichick and Mike McCarthy and Mike Holmgren, it's taking, you taking the groceries you're given and making, a 5-course meal out of it. It's kind of a situation where, like you said, everybody has their own thing. Everybody does everything different, where you may take a piece here, a piece there. But a lot of times a piece here, doing your own thing isn't always successful. And, not that you want to copy somebody, but at the same time, you see a proven track record of success. It makes you wonder if it's just why it hasn't latched on, even with the Belichick coaching tree. I don't know of anybody. Who would you say was the most successful? Bill O'Brien?
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not talking anything terrific. I think the best they've done is, this year? The wild card game?
They've been in the playoffs, surprisingly, I think, throughout the last 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, it's certainly something to be said for that.
Obviously, you want to move forward, and
sure.
That's easier said than done. It's just, even the Belichick coaching tree, I'm sure that they've gone to great lengths to take what they've learned from under Bill, and even that necessarily hasn't worked for a lot of guys. Weiss, Crennel, to an extent McDaniels. Trying to think who else is there. Brian Flores is now going to get the job. See what happens there. But anyways, let's talk about a few things with the Super Bowl. Obviously, the line movement has been non-existent. You have found 3 in a few places, but at the same time, the sports books haven't been too kind to moving that line to 3.
Yeah, that's for sure true. There's only been 2 books that I know of that have moved to the 3 minus 110, and it was only for a brief time. South Point out here in Las Vegas, and then William Hill across the world. And William Hill hung around for about 10 hours, and South Point was brief. I think they said 3 or 4 hours, and Chris Andrews.
Didn't they get like 500,000 or 600,000 when it moved?
He said they got 600,000 plus, even in that very short span. So yeah, it's interesting, and I think the reason they got a lot more action than William Hill is simply because of who they allow to bet. So South Point is a pretty sharp book, and they'll allow pretty much anyone to bet relative any number, whereas William Hill is going to limit the sharper bettors for the most part. So yeah, it's kind of fascinating. But even with that aspect taken into account, William Hill still moved off of the minus 110, and they are currently a 120 line, so it's 10 cents higher, but they are still at 3, and there's a few other books, as you said, Aaron, that are. But at this point, I think until some major money comes in, there's probably only 20% or so of the handle on the game, on the actual side and total that's come in so far. So there'll be a lot more as this weekend approaches here, and I think once that happens, then we'll start to see some significant movement, and we'll see different books, I think, move differently as well. I think you'll see some books close at 2, maybe 1.5, and other books that will remain strong here with this 2.5 number. I don't think anybody will close at 3 though.
Wow, you think it's going to be more gravitating towards the 2 then?
I do. I think we'll see a definite schism between certain books that are hanging at 2, maybe a 1.5, versus others that are going to be strongly still on the 2.5 side.
Yeah, Token, I've sat in a few books, and I know you and I have sat in a few books watching games and watching the NFL and whatnot, but I can honestly say I don't know who a sharp and a square is when they walk up to the counter. And I can also honestly say at one point, the largest bet I've ever personally seen with my eyes placed is about $25,000. I would love to be just sitting in a book one time when a guy like Vegas Dave or whoever brings in 100, 200, 500K. Do they?
Yeah, that'd be pretty dumb to see in person, though.
Because these guys don't have like accounts. Obviously, like we have William Hill accounts on our phone. I'm sure they have the accounts on their phone, but their account doesn't say 500,000. Like I had imagined they don't keep that much money in an account. What I'm saying, Token?
No, that'd be stupid too in my mind. But I mean, you never know. They could.
Yeah, actually, Tony, Tony Johnson, I got a question. Who do you think has deposited more in their William Hill account, Vegas Dave or Token Tony?
Are we talking about amount of times deposited or total money?
Number of deposits. Yeah, not total money.
I'm taking Token. I'm going with Token.
Well, I will say I've deposited twice this year so far.
Yeah, and we're a month in.
Okay. So, all right. So this is the tail end of the football season. But, I mean, the meat and potatoes from September through December is probably the times they get the most deposits. Not only
we need to look at his deposit history.
Yeah.
I can confidently say my last deposit was October of 2017.
That's probably a big rarity, too. So, I mean, that's impressive, number one. And two, I think there are some, and I know there's some of us similar to me that I like to withdraw, more
I have
consistently.
withdrawn.
Yeah, and deposit/withdraw more consistently, just because I don't, as you guys said, want to leave a lot of money out there just on the app. It's not necessarily
Safe.
Yes, exactly.
And is that not backed by a gaming commission or anything?
It's very.
I mean,
gray.
I know it's not FDIC.
It's a gray area, a very large gray area. Yeah, I looked at when I signed up. I looked at the small print. If there's like a technological glitch or a hack or something like that, they've pretty much stepped hands off.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe
So,
I need to go.
yeah.
Maybe I need to go take more out.
Yeah, I mean, I would take a look at it. I mean, just so you're aware. But yeah, anything that happens technologically wise, they really are going to wash their hands of the situation for the most part of the.
My account's in 4 digits, and at one point it was in the 5s. But I have since made a few withdrawals, not a deposit yet, but that doesn't make me feel very great now. Now I'm starting.
That's why I do it. Yeah, that's
But
the
you're
only
right.
reason.
So generally, what's an average quote unquote bankroll you like to keep in your mobile?
Somewhere in the low 4 figures, kind of what you're saying, and I have it stretched out across 3 or 4 different apps now. So I currently use the Westgate stations and William Hill for the most part, and then I also have, just for the playoffs as they've come about here, I have Cantor Gaming as well, which just renovated their app. I heard their app was really subpar before. I did not use it then.
I've never used it myself either.
And now it is very user friendly, I must say, since recently downloading it a few weeks ago. Very user friendly, very easy to see with the menu options. Yeah, I think you guys, having used, I know you both use William Hill, and if you use any of the Westgate and stations is the same type of interface. I think the interface they use at Cantor is much better than the other two. So
the stations used to be a terrible app too, and they've gotten a lot better.
It's gotten better, yeah. And the same thing, the Westgate is the same style of stations.
Okay, because I've never known. I guess I don't know. Maybe being late to the party, I've never known anything but what Westgate currently uses their interface, and even then, I'm not crazy about it. It's a little bit difficult. I wouldn't say difficult, but it's a little bit annoying to use.
No question, no doubt about that. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's talk a few things because it is Super Bowl week, and I know that's the obviously number one topic. And how are you guys feeling right now? You're talking about the line movement. We're talking about where to place bets. Obviously, Token and I have our prop bet. We're going to be placing the podcast. The podcast will be aired on 12 Ounce Sports Radio Sunday morning. We'll be recording it Saturday, so it'll be up on the website Saturday afternoon. But just a general thought, I mean, we didn't really – we talked about, you and a new podcast the co-host. Is it a co-host when there's 5 people?
Yeah, I guess. Just a lot of
co-host, Cleo. And, you kind of gave a little bit of your initial early thoughts. But, I mean, now that we're here Thursday – where's your lean at this point? I know like you said, you want the Rams if you can get the price right.
Yeah.
But I mean, is there anything that would lead you to take the Patriots side?
None. There's nothing. Well, actually, okay. There is one thing. If for some reason a lot of Rams money comes in over the next few days here, leading up into Sunday, and that New England money line, because the money line is always going to be skewed a little bit, because more money is bet on the underdog money line than on the underdog point spread, so they have to move the money line. If I've already made a pact with myself, if New England gets down to minus 120 to minus 125, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't, but because they're like 140 right now. If it gets down to that realm, I will try to middle, because I did pick up my 4th Super Bowl side bet in my life. I did pick up the Rams +3 when it went down to minus 110. To me, there's just too much value there if I believe and me, and it's not, thankfully, because I don't care much about my opinion really, to be honest with you, but thankfully there's quite a few other really strong opinions, good bookmakers that really believe this line should be probably 1.5 Rams. So to me, if I can get down to 120, 125, I will money line New England. And so we'll have a New England money line bet, and then we'll have the Rams +3. And I think there's a lot of good spots right there because that game could certainly fall in that realm for not only a middle, but certainly a win-push situation is possible as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy the amount of money token that's coming in on the side of the Patriots. I mean, for a team that's hated as much as they are publicly, to everybody just to assume. I mean, look. We did the Super Bowl podcast last year. I believe, if I'm correct, all four of us were heavy on the Pats. Me, you, Spike, and Tony Johnson. And
that is correct, yeah.
And I believe we all know what happened there. It just seems like we're setting ourselves right up again to do this again. And I've heard a lot of because I keep an ear to the ground around the gambling industry, and the thing I hear is, no way Tom Brady loses 2 Super Bowls in a row. And it's like, I don't think it works like that.
I mean, there's the whole team around him and all that, and this team is not the same as last year, and it's a different team that they're playing New Year, new Super Bowl.
Do you almost feel like
interesting?
Do you almost feel like this is a better team than last year? I mean, last year the running game was virtually not a thing. I mean, Deion Lewis is not Sony Michel, even though Sony Michel is a rookie. James White and Deion Lewis were basically doing the same thing. And then you have, Gronk was, I would even say Gronk was less of himself last year than he was this year. And you had no Julian Edelman last year. But you had no Julian Edelman last year. So, I mean,
that's a key piece, yeah.
And that's really the thing is almost, I don't want to get too overhyped because, again, as a bettor, you've got to take your heart out of it. And I will tell you this, personally, I'm a degen, so this may not matter come 3 days from now. I really don't believe for a personal financial aspect that I will be betting on this Super Bowl. Obviously, we have our prop bet. There's $50 on the line. But I think when it actually comes down to it, I might not bet anything regarding winning and losing. I'll probably have a couple props in for some players. Those are always a fun sweat. And then we'll have Super Bowl players at the party. But I think
I was actually thinking the same thing. I might not wager on the game, but just on props and the squares, of course.
Yeah. So my question really is, like I said, I mean, it almost seems like you don't want to get too caught up, but at the same time, you don't want to be too cautious because, Token, I believe this New England team, is better than they were last year.
I could agree with that. I mean, compared to where we were at the situation, the Super Bowl last year, I don't disagree with it. So, I mean, Sony Michel is definitely a key component with that offensive scheme, for sure. And it'll be interesting what they do against the Rams defense in this case.
Yeah, fun new one here, Mr. Johnson. DraftKings in New Jersey has posted 3 props before the 2019 Week 1 season, or Week 1 of the 2019 season. Will Rob Gronkowski, Tom Brady, or Bill Belichick be retired? They all have different odds as well. DraftKings I didn't think you could post bets like that. Something that could be manipulated off the field. But nevertheless, it's an awesome prop bet.
It is a good prop, yeah.
Would you, again, you're not in New Jersey, would you make a wager on any of those?
Well, I've been saying since basically the beginning of the season that I think this will be Gronk's last year, mostly just because of his, fading ability to play, and the fact that
he's awesome. Shut up.
And the fact that certainly he's financially stable and has accomplished a lot both individually and in the team aspect. So there's just not a whole lot to be playing for per se. So my guess is that will happen. And then in regards to the other two, I think it's almost a 0% chance that you see retirement from either Brady.
Brady's
or
already
Belichick.
come out and said it, so
Right.
I guess taking the no has got to be super juiced. I'm trying
would guess.
I'm trying to find if they have their odds online.
Yeah, I would say that the only one with relative odds to be betting would be Gronk, I assume, just for the reasons stated. And certainly I can't see, as Brady has mentioned, he's not going anywhere. And this does seem like Belichick's sort of, his life at this point, which is, nothing wrong with that. So, I from what I understand or for what I think, that would be my take on it. But, yeah, I mean, if you could get something in the relatively low, minus money line on Brady or Belichick staying, then certainly I think it could be a viable wager because I think both of them are highly likely to come back.
Yeah, I would say the only one I believe is Brady, 0% chance, especially if he loses. I mean, as if the guy needs more of a chip on his shoulder, losing 2 Super Bowls. Now you're 5-4 in Super Bowls at that point. Could you imagine the chip on Tom Brady's shoulder? Because the thing is, I think, personally, if he loses this Super Bowl, I think the Montana Brady discussion comes back. And again, the discussion's always there because you have the old guard who wants Joe Montana to just always live. It's the same with the MJ and LeBron. It looks like DraftKings. I have to download it on my phone if I want to see the lines, which I can't right now because Token's on the phone, which is okay. We'll check it out later. But I think if he goes 5-4 in Super Bowls, again, he has 9 appearances to Montana's 4, but he's got 4 losses at that point. So I got to imagine that argument may resurface as a more viable argument now at 5-3 with 8 appearances now going on 9. I think the argument's to bed, but I think 5-4, the argument, what do you guys think, comes back around?
I could say if he does lose this one, it might linger around, but I mean, it's very impressive to go to 9 than more than half of them. So
yeah, that's my thought. He still won 5, which is more than Montana. And I think the difference between the Montana Brady debate, Tony, and the MJ LeBron debate is Brady's still 5-4 in Super Bowls. LeBron is 3-5 in finals. Like he has a losing record. Everybody, I'm quick to jump on LeBron to say, okay, he made 8 straight finals, but look, it was in the East, So not a big deal in my opinion. But then, the other thing is look at Tom Brady. He's in the AFC East, blah blah blah. Same kind of general argument, but I think the difference is Tom Brady would be 55% in Super Bowls, and LeBron James would be what? Was he 3-9 right now altogether?
No, 3. He's been to 12, really? Wow.
Or excuse me, 3-6 altogether. He's been to 9.
9, 3-6.
Because he went to 8 straight, and then he went to 1 against the Spurs, right?
Yeah, they went to 1 in early Cleveland days.
Yeah, I thought they got swept by the Spurs, but
yeah.
Either way, my point being is he's still 33% in his finals appearances. So, anyways, not to get off on too much of a tangent. That's just kind of where I'm leaning. But we're obviously going to have more to talk about the Super Bowl. We got a Saturday podcast. We got a Sunday podcast. So we'll get into more of that. I want to talk about some other things that are going on in the world of sports. Let's switch over to basketball. And I know that, Token, you can put the phone down, maybe go make yourself a pizza, because I know this doesn't really fly up your alley.
Nice.
yeah,
But I want to talk a little basketball right now. And the first thing I want to talk about is a few days ago, Steve Kerr became the fastest coach in sports to win 300 games. Now, that's over all the 4 major sports, which the previous record was held by Pat Riley. He was 316, so he needed 416 games. Kerr has compiled a 377 regular season, meaning over 377 games. He has now won 300 of them. An asterisk, if you will, it does count the 39-4 mark when he missed time.
Yeah.
Luke Walton was the coach, the interim coach.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, that's funny. I'm
And-
going to bring it up, actually.
Yeah, and a tag, if you'd like, as well. He has had what I believe might be one of the greatest assembled teams ever in the NBA.
Sure, and it kind of goes back a little bit to your Brady, LeBron, whether they're winning titles thing, how much credit are you going to give, with quality of team around you, for a single player or a single coach, and that's sort of always the question, with these debates and these things, and certainly I think it's a lot of Steve Kerr's credit and work for why this team is so good. I can granted, obviously we saw Luke Walton, go 39-4 when Kerr was out with the back surgery. That certainly, I think a lot of coaches could come in and win with the team that's currently out there on the floor,
yeah.
Right? But I mean, constructing those teams and being a part of it.
My favorite thing I see is like on Facebook, a lot of guys are like, "Yeah, I can come in and coach that team."
Sure, I mean, well, that's right. Makes it certainly a lot easier when there are many nights that the Warriors are playing where their lineup and their starting five is significantly better than the entire team, the entire complexion of the team that they're facing. And, we had talked about it slightly earlier, and we may bring it up again here, how you compare this starting five to the East, the NBA East starters.
Yeah, we did talk about that on another podcast.
And I'm pretty confident that the starting five for Golden State is definitely better than the East starters. So it's kind of fascinating.
Token, while we're finishing up here, I want to give you a little trivia. I'll come back to you. Since you're an NFL and NHL guy, I will ask you the two coaches in those leagues, or the one coach in each of those leagues, the fastest one to win 300 games in those leagues. So I'll let you stew on that. Don't Google it, but I'll let you stew on that and see if you can provide a guess.
The NHL one seems tough, by the way.
The NHL one is a little tough. You would know who it is, Token. And the NFL one, I believe you should know who it is.
Doable.
So, all right, back to you. Tony, yeah, fastest to 300 wins again.
Yeah.
Like you talked about Pat Riley, I believe that was the Lakers Pat Riley, or was that the Knicks Pat Riley when he first came out? You would know that more so than I would.
When Pat Riley first started coaching?
I mean, his first to 300 wins. I mean,
the Lakers, yes.
Was it the Lakers? Okay, so I couldn't remember if it was the Knicks or the Lakers. So,
yep.
I mean, again, and it just, to me, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to take away. I mean, the 39-4 mark, fine. Throw the 39 games in there. That's cool. Not a big ordeal, but
yeah.
I mean, it just seems like it's like I said. I don't want to give the Facebook trolls any love, but I don't know if they're really wrong. I mean, this team basically should have 4 straight titles. Not really sure. Again, I watched the series where they blew the 3-1 lead, and obviously Kyrie hit the shot. And again, they should have 4 straight titles. It's just tough to. I mean, maybe that's where coaching failed. I mean, blowing a 3-1 lead when you have, again, they didn't have Kevin Durant, but when you had the team that they had at the time. I mean, to say, Kerr's such an outstanding coach, I feel like an outstanding coach, I mean, Phil Jackson, Pat Riley, these guys never blew those kind of leads.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
I would have to go deep in the archives, but
right.
I mean, when do you remember Phil Jackson ever blowing a large series lead?
Well, I think the time they got absolutely shellacked by the Mavericks as well. I think they lost a 4-0 series to the Mavericks in that last kind of hurrah. That was pretty embarrassing.
What? No. What
yeah.
Are you talking about? When was this?
This was when I think this was the Mavs run the title. No. This was just Kobe. Shaq had way moved on at that point. This was probably 6 years after the.
Was this when Dallas and Miami, when Shaq played for the Heat? Maybe 2005.
I would. Yes, because Dallas beat Miami in that series.
The title.
Yeah, and so there was Artest and some other guy got ejected. I think it was Lamar Odom for.
So just being thoroughly outclassed 4-0 is worse. When you probably weren't.
I'm just saying it happens to everybody. I mean, it's not just a one-time deal.
I'm saying when Phil had the guys, whether it was Michael in the Bulls or Kobe, Shaq in the Lakers, when Phil had the guys, he never blew a 3-1 lead.
And again, my only point to that is that Jordan played with, in my opinion, the most underrated player of all time, Scottie Pippen, who's a top 10 player in my book.
I thought you were going to say Tony Kukoc.
No, Kukoc was a fine player as well, but Pippen is a top 10 player outright in my mind, just because nobody's ever played wing defense like Scottie Pippen. He's the best wing defender I've ever seen, and I'll be hard pressed to find somebody that might actually be better than this, just because of the way the game is changing and how the fast pace. I think it's going to be more just difficult for that to ever.
Michael played pretty good
again.
defense too.
Michael was good, but he wasn't even close to how good Scottie was. That's how great Scott.
Bruce Bowen, anything?
Oh, I mean, so he's fine.
I'm just
player.
asking. I'm throwing up.
Yeah.
I'm throwing up noodles. See which one's thick.
LeBron in his prime it was
Played some
an
pretty good
unbelievable wing defender. Klay Thompson on the other side, by the way, really underrated as well as a defender. I'm talking about these one-on-one wing defense, which is to me the hardest thing to do in basketball. So yeah, I mean that's my take. There is when you put together two of some of the greatest players of all time. Kobe and Shaq. The two other probably top 10 players of all time too. So you're going to win a lot of games. And again, I'm giving Phil partial credit for being able to help build a team like this. And I know he was heavily involved with management at both stops, both in LA and in Chicago.
Yeah.
With gathering a team, and Steve the same way here with Steve. They've taken a full communal approach to building this team, and I think the use of technology as well that gets a little bit understated with how Golden State has run their team over the last many years. They haven't had a lot of injury issues over these 5, 6, 7 plus years now, and I think some of that has to do with some of the medical technology that they're utilizing, and they were the first to sleep in hyperbaric chambers and things like that on the road. And there's a lot of stuff that I think goes unsaid too that is involved in this. How much is Steve Kerr a part of that? Again, who knows? I don't really know, but I'll give him a lot of credit. He was a very successful general manager with Phoenix.
Yeah.
And he was an incredibly good commentator on TNT. And he's just a guy that whatever he's done, he's been successful at. And not only has he been successful, but he's done it, in my opinion, at least the way I've seen it. And having lived in Chicago and being around a little bit with him, which was nice. And he was a member at the country club that I worked at too. And he always seems to have done it the right way. As well, and he's a nice guy, and he's just a down to earth kind of fellow. So to me, I think that matters as well. I think this is probably getting more play because Steve has always been relatively upfront with the media and with people in general, and I think this is probably gathering more steam because of this. So do I hold it in the same parlance of some of these other names of the other sports?
What about your boy Pop?
See that, and that's wow, what a fantastic
whole
question.
other conversation.
It's a whole other conversation. It's a great question. To me, he's not on the Pop level because Pop has done this with really good teams and really bad teams. If you look at the team this year and all the injuries they've had too, there's nobody's healthy in this
and they're
team.
still 5th or 6th seed,
hanging around 6 games over 500.
Good. I need him to make the playoffs. I got 200 to 1 on a ticket.
And I have an underbet, and I'm hating myself for making this underbet because I love Pop more than life itself almost, and I bet under just because I felt like that was the right move, and I might lose because of it. And if I lose this ticket, I will just nod my head and be okay with it.
My 200 to 1 because I don't think they're winning the title,
but they look like they're in a decent, good spot here to have a nice enough seed, especially if they get healthier as these weeks go on. So
my goal is just to not have them play the Warriors in the first round.
It's a good goal to have, a very viable, good goal to have. So yeah.
So last thing I want to talk about with this, and then we'll get over to Token is. The one thing I've always wondered, and again, I don't run around basketball circles. You like the NBA, so you're almost my lifeline here with NBA talk. With everybody's viewpoint, when did this team? Because everybody, and there's still some people out there like, this is Mark Jackson's team. This is Mark Jackson's team. At what point did it stop really? Because he built a lot of it, or that organization when he was the coach built a lot of it. What point did it shift where that stopped being a narrative to most people, to sane people, to sports people who know sports?
Well, I think many would say the original part would probably
be...
That
big three was under Mark Jackson.
Not Durant, but...
No, the big three with the original three. Sorry.
Right.
Let's go with that. I'm sorry. Yeah,
so,
the big three doesn't have Durant in it, yeah.
I would say there's two major aspects. The first one would be Steve Kerr obviously showing up and understanding how to make these very strong personalities work together well. So I would say the head coach, number one. Number two, I think, is the development of Steph Curry and the amount of time that he devoted to practice and his practice regimen of the shots that he was taking, and he's a very non-traditional practice guy for obvious visual reasons, and I think that was the biggest one because he was always obviously a very good shooter, but he was reluctant to shoot some of the shots that he currently takes. And in the offense that they had in the Mark Jackson era, some of the sets that they ran, they didn't utilize the talent best. So I think that development of becoming what I think is very clear at this point, especially statistically, the greatest shooter we've ever seen. Although it would have been nice to have a 3-point line with some of the older shooters. I know Jerry West would have really hit some big marks, but I mean I think there's no question that he has been one of the biggest game changers we've seen in this generation. Certainly, I think LeBron is probably the biggest one, but Steph Curry is in my opinion. I just had this conversation with another very good fellow NBA fan. We believe Steph Curry is still an underrated player. He's won 2 MVPs. They've won a bunch of titles. We believe he's an underrated player currently in this NBA climate. That's how good this guy is and how much he moves the needle.
I don't know if I would say underrated in the sense of, I mean, a lot of people rope him top 5. I mean, he may be top 2. You know, you have your conversations, but I think he's a transcendent player.
He sure is.
Like LeBron, Michael, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Jerry West, etc. You know, guys like that. I think he's transcendent. He has changed the way kids play basketball as a kid.
Couldn't agree more.
Which, if you're not a good basketball player, it's changed for the worse because you're just jacking up threes. But if you're working on your craft,
but people are shooting threes. They're practicing threes. It didn't happen as much before. Now people are working on shooting.
Again,
it's nice.
for better or for worse, depending, independent clause, he has changed the game.
And he's a much better defender than when he came into the NBA as well, which is something to be said because he was always undersized, and there was this thought that he wouldn't be able to, really be involved. But he's become a much better defender. So
fair enough. All right, Token, it's time for your answers.
Oh yes, this is gonna be fun.
NHL.
NHL. He's the fastest to 300 wins.
Yeah, the least amount of games to 300 wins.
I'm gonna go with Tim Hitchcock.
That would be incorrect.
But I didn't think he was right. But
that's a decent guess though, especially with his time with the Stars and I believe he was the Blackhawks a little bit. The answer is Bruce Boudreau. Currently with the Minnesota Wild, formerly of the Anaheim Ducks. All right, and the NFL, your answer?
No idea.
Really?
I was thinking like Tony Dungy, but I knew he wasn't a coach that long. So,
well, try to think about longevity and coaching. And let me tell you, I don't think Bill Belichick's even close to this guy as far as wins go. I mean, not as far as how, in terms of top 10 coaching, but I'll give you a couple seconds here. I mean, think about a guy, 70s, 80s, maybe early 90s. Yeah, 70s, 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, 300 wins, I think, is the key to feel how many people are even possible to have
I think there's
tried to
only 2.
achieve. Yeah, like the actual potential. That's the only thought I would have had trying to come up with this. I don't know if I would have come up with it or not before I saw it, but that is the only hint I can give is you better have coached many, 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 many years for this to be even a viable thing. Yeah. Because that means
nothing? You got nothing?
I have no idea.
All right.
Nothing.
All right. The answer is Don Shula.
Oh, okay. Sounds familiar. He coached with the Dolphins, right?
That is correct. He actually coached the Baltimore Colts as well with Johnny Unitas. He went 71-3 with the Colts and 257 and 130. Man, he coached the Dolphins for 25 years.
Yeah, a long time.
That's
pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean it's just you don't see these coaches, coaching for this many years with the same team anymore. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, Bill Belichick is 9 wins away from the 300 club.
Oh, he is.
Do you know who the other member of the 300 club is?
I would assume it's got to be old school.
It is old school. Coached to the 20s all the way through the 67 season.
Yeah, I was thinking it's like Hallis or somebody along those lines, or I don't know how long Lombardi went. Probably not that long.
Vince Lombardi has...
I don't think he coached that long.
You're right, he didn't coach.
I guess it would be George Hallis, but I don't know.
You would be correct.
Okay. Yeah.
You would be correct with George Hallis. George Hallis and Don Shula are the only members of the 300 win club at this point.
Wow.
And George Halas has 31 ties, too. Just think if he'd have won half of those.
Nice. That includes the...
Lombardi's only got 105 wins.
Does he?
Really? Oh, yeah, I didn't think he had coached that long.
Yeah, he didn't.
so.
He really didn't coach that long. He coached for 10 years, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
So 105 wins in 10 years. Actually, 11 years. 105 wins in 11 years is pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of these guys, you really think about the guys that revolutionized the game, didn't coach that long. Bill Walsh, he was at Stanford for so long.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he was split between both different spots.
Then you look at a guy like Lovie Smith, who has 100 wins.
Right.
Lovie Smith is right there with Vince Lombardi and Bill Walsh.
Recruiting well at Illinois. It's nice to see.
Yeah, John Gruden right in that area.
Right.
So it's just crazy to see some of these guys get 3 or 4 jobs. Sean Payton, 126 wins.
And I would guess Bill Parcells probably doesn't have a huge number either, despite how successful he was at many different spots. I don't think he coached that long per se as a head coach, because I think his first spot was in the NFL was with the Giants there in the early 80s.
83 to 90?
Yeah, because he was the coach at like Air Force or something like that before, whatever. But nothing in the NFL. And then he had a couple of years of those weird years with the Jets. Well, he did well with Dallas for a couple of years too, I think. So
he was just over 500 with Dallas.
Oh, okay. I thought he had maybe he just had one good season, but
and he was 500 with the Patriots in his 3 years there.
Right. Okay,
or 4 years, I guess.
I'll say he's got 143 wins.
183.
Dang.
Okay. So it's crazy, yeah. You think about stuff like that. I mean, Bill Belichick had 36 wins in his 4 years in Pittsburgh, and now he has 291. Let's see, best win percentage. I'm curious. Wikipedia is awesome when you start falling down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I just looked at that. I already know who that person is.
Guy Chamberlain, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
Coached the Canton Bulldogs, but Vince Lombardi of people of actual lots of games. Vince Lombardi and John Madden. 74% and 73.5%.
Yeah, another guy coached a relatively short time, but he had good teams. Yeah, that makes sense. That's good.
Yeah, Bill Belichick's right there, just underneath him with a 69% win percentage. 69% in today's NFL.
And I assume Dungy's got to be way up there too. I would guess. With win
you're right.
percentage.
65%.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, he did good with both of the franchises he was at too. So.
Yep.
All right, so let's stick in the NBA. Token, you can go back to check on your pizza. Let's this last topic here I want to discuss. It's the topic du jour with the LeBron James and the Lakers. And a lot of these people who have written articles have made it very clear that it's LeBron James camp, comma, not LeBron James necessarily, comma, wants Luke Walton gone. Yeah. What do you make of this? It's, you got a guy, okay, they're like, oh, so much expectation out of Luke Walton now that he's got LeBron. Well, LeBron's not playing.
Right.
So are we really going to replay this narrative over and over again where LeBron gets to just do whatever? He literally has a white easel to do whatever he wants?
We are replaying the narrative. Yes, I think that you're exactly... Yes, I mean, there's nothing else to say. David Blatt was very good with Cleveland. I think a lot of people maintain that. He's won everywhere he's been, both internationally, college, and he did well enough with Cleveland. But this is the same type of situation. I'm not quite sure that Luke Walton is as good of a coach as David Blatt overall.
Fair assessment.
I mean, I'm with you. I don't know what else to say. I think this is, first of all, not only is it happening again, but it just that we have to read about this. And again, as an NBA fan, and anyone that loves the sport that they like,
you're mostly a player guy.
Yeah, you want to read things like this where it's constantly about this camp or this guy doesn't want this, and Anthony Davis wants out of New Orleans. I don't want to hear about this crap.
But this is what you get from letting the players run the asylum.
Essentially, yes, that's true. And when teams are tied to star players as much as they are now.
You get a guy like Colin Cowherd saying it's the Pelicans' fault for not putting teams around him. You can't in the NBA. These teams in New Orleans, Orlando, give me a few more examples.
OKC.
OKC's been competitive. But teams like New Orleans, Orlando, Brooklyn, which I know that's a New York market, but they're not the Knicks. Anyways, Washington's another one. These teams that really nobody wants to go to, they have no shot. They hope they nail it in the draft, but then even after a few years, these guys are like, I want LA, I want Boston, I want New York, I want Chicago, Golden State.
Yeah.
And I mean, even Golden State for the longest time wasn't a destination where anybody wanted to go. Sacramento is
Definitely
another
not.
one.
Especially playing in Oakland. Nobody wants to do that, really, why they're moving the team over
To San
across
Francisco.
the way. Yeah. But
My point being is like the NBA has become, and to an extent it always has been, but it always seemed like it was cyclical. You had, the Celtics, then you had the Sixers, then you had Celtics, Lakers, Detroit, Chicago, L.A., San Antonio, New York was good for a while. It just seems like throughout the NBA, it's the opposite of the NFL. A lot of these teams, they go into these franchises. Like, look, I follow the Orlando Magic because I used to work near them. Like, I worked around the Orlando Magic when I was in radio a lot. And the old narrative now, once Dwight left, was just like, we know we have no shot. What the fuck are we doing? Mm-hmm. And I don't like that feeling as a sports fan. I mean, unless you're a Lions fan, of just starting every year 0-0, going, why are we doing this?
It's tough, which makes it even more impressive what Pop has been able to do in San Antonio, which is arguably one of the smallest markets the NBA has. So it's
fair
without anything around it at all. I mean, San Antonio
I think Pop implies or applies the Belichick model. But he's a little more lenient and liberal. But the actual act of building a team is you're going to come here, you're going to be part of a team, you're going to work hard, and we're just going to do the best we can. And most of the time, the best we can is conference finals or finals. But there are some years where that didn't happen. And there's more than likely a few years here down the road where that's not going to happen. I mean, having Tim Duncan for, 16 years kind of helped.
It did.
So not having him is really going to be Pop's biggest.
Yeah, they tanked in '96 specifically to try to get the number one pick or give themselves the best chance.
They almost lost them too in 99, 2000 or
something
whatever.
like that. Yeah,
Orlando.
It was back and forth. It was close.
If you believe,
yeah, it depends on
pundits
what
out of
believe.
Orlando, it was pretty close.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how close it was.
From what I understand, Tim Duncan did not want to play with Tracy McGrady. He was cool with playing with Grant Hill, but he did not want to play with Tracy McGrady.
And then if you talk to Pop, it was this was like never an issue that Duncan was ever going to leave. So
why is he ever going to bring that back up? Why rehash? But I mean, again, one story. Yeah. He said, she said. So, anyways, going back to LeBron, we're opening up the blank slate again. I don't follow the NBA as much, but when you bring in a guy like LeBron James, you bring in Rajon Rondo, you have Lonzo Ball there.
Oh, God.
And then they're all hurt at the same time.
Yeah, that's true.
How are you saying that Luke Walton's doing a bad job? What's he supposed to win with? They got peanuts. Brandon Ingram sucks. Kyle Kuzma has a pulse. It's about the only pulse on the team.
Well, I think you have to be pretty happy with the ceiling and what Ingram, can show on any given night. I mean, I think that he's probably one of the better aspects of the development, or at least your hopefully development of the Lakers. He's a pretty decent two-way player for being still relatively young. And while I'll admit he makes some gross and kind of graphic mistakes here and there, he's certainly a guy you're going to be wanting to build, I think, a team around. In fact, I don't think he
doesn't sound like it though. It sounds like he's one of the key pieces that they're willing to give away. From what I understand, they want to keep one of the three of Ball, Ingram, or Kuzma.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Sounds like Kuzma's the guy, and he's the latest draft pick that they had.
Well, I'm not saying that he's the one to stay or go. I don't know what the case is there. I also think the management in place with the Lakers is a disaster. So I'm sure they won't get it right. But
I mean, the management is LeBron, Magic, and this Pelinka guy. Rob Pelinka. That's the management. I mean,
and the owner seems to keep a hand in the proceedings as well.
She sounds like she's wants to keep Luke Walton there, but she said that ultimately it's Magic's decision. She'll support whatever he does.
Well,
which basically means
who knows?
I'll save face by saying yes, I like Lukey, but he gone.
Who knows? But I mean, Magic is not.
Who are you going to bring in? Is Magic going to coach the team?
He's not. First of all, he's not a GM. He's not a guy that is going to do this well. We've seen this narrative.
The Flavor Flav of the NBA. He just hypes it up.
We've seen this narrative for the last 20, 30 years. Is where former great players come in and try to build a team and understand how a franchise works. And it's only been successful one time.
Larry Bird.
And you could argue the level of success, and that would be Larry Bird, exactly. So that's the only thing you can say. And what Larry's done the last couple of years, by the way, has been fantastic. Building that team in Indiana. An unfortunate injury there as well to Oladipo. But, on this note...
Rest in peace, Victor Oladipo.
Yeah. On this note, I mean, I don't necessarily know and or agree with the public of who the player is that they should keep. I think the highest upside is Ingram, but just because of the defensively. But it would be, I mean, besides that, I'm not really sure. I know it's absolutely 100% not Lonzo Ball. That is verbatim easy. I mean,
Can you imagine shipping Lonzo off to New Orleans? Maybe his dad will shut up. I doubt it, but
if you've noticed, his dad hasn't said a whole lot recently because, I mean, Lonzo has been a relative disaster on the court this year. And yes, now barring injury, I understand now, but...
did you see the new one that came out? He said...
No.
LeVar said that if you're going to trade my son, please make it a 3-team deal so he can go somewhere that's competitive.
Yeah, I saw that. So, I mean, who wouldn't want their kid to go in a competitive spot?
I'd send his ass to Olympiacos in Greece.
There you go. But no, I'm just not a fan of the team that they've built, and so having the management team in place, which I don't believe in and don't like, and the way they put this team together this year makes beyond no sense.
Well,
and
a bunch of one-year deals to dump the cap. I mean, they're already talking about they want to keep KCP because he has, $20 million deal because they believe Clay or KD is coming here next year, and they need that salary to come off the books because if they trade for Anthony Davis and have to match the salaries, they may have to end up taking somebody they don't want and get stuck with them. So they want to keep the KCP. They want to trade all these guys to basically like a 4-for-1 deal, so that way they still have the cap space to go get that third guy. I mean, there's reports it's Klay Thompson, there's reports it's Kevin Durant, there's reports it's Kyrie Irving, there's reports it's Jimmy Butler.
That's the reasoning for bringing in these big names and giving them kind of like stupid, weird contracts is because they were hoping that it would be trade bait, I think, at some point this year.
Yeah, you remember like the Robin Lopez 4-year, $80 million deal. And
the problem is I think other people there's a lot of really smart teams now that understand what the hell is going on. They understand exactly why LA did what they did, and there's not a lot of teams that are willing to put a lot of bad contracts on the books anymore. It just doesn't happen.
Well, I get exactly what they did. Again, Lance Stevenson 1-year deal, JaVale McGee 1-year deal. It all makes sense because that all's gone when it's the summer of greatness. I mean, they didn't get Paul George, so fuck it. We're punting this year, essentially. I mean, I'm not even sure they really want to make the playoffs at this point. Why not go for a lottery pick and you got a shot at Zion. Could you imagine Zion, AD, LeBron, and maybe Kevin Durant? I don't know, but who knows? But
I don't. They won't get in the lottery. It's when James gets back, they'll be fine. But
that's the thing. I also think that James is faking it still. I think he was healthy at the beginning of the year.
He was healthy at the beginning of the year, and then he wasn't.
At the beginning of this calendar year is what I mean. I think he's been sitting out 4 or 5 games. Basically just sitting back and watching this. Why waste my energy and my time? He's 35 years old? Why waste this part right now when I can re-energize and be good next year? When I got players, not these scum buckets.
Well, I have no idea about that. I'm not going to try to figure out who...
I mean, I could be completely wrong. I think he's not hurt. I don't think he's as hurt. I think he could play a basketball game. If it was the finals, I think he could play a basketball game.
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea. But they did a horrendous job. I will not agree. I will continuously not agree with the idea and the
Wait, they weren't
setup.
competing this year. They're not competing
right.
this year.
So why would you let Julius Randle walk? That's what doesn't make any sense. It was a 3-year, generally minimal contract for his type of talent and ability, and how
maybe they didn't
good
like
he's
him.
been. Well, that's my whole point. Is that if you can't like Julius Randle and what he brings to the table, you aren't doing this right.
And maybe you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. Again, you know way more than I do. I see what they're doing, and if they hit gold, if they get AD, if they get Klay Thompson, or if they get, God forbid, if they get AD and Kyrie Irving, it all worked out, no matter what.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I just don't.
If they don't get any Warriors and all the Warriors resign, they're still not going to beat the Warriors. But anyways, I don't want to keep Token. He's falling asleep over there. So we got about 6 minutes left. I want to let you guys chat about the Waste Management Open because I know you guys have some picks and some things to talk about. So yeah, you got about you got about 5 minutes. So I'll let you go.
What?
Well, yeah, Token, I was just looking over the deal here, and I know we have this split spot with the new Saudi International going on the European Tour, and they've stolen some of our great PGA Tour players here for the week. It looks like Patrick Reed, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, and Dustin Johnson, along with Justin Rose, who I know is a European, so I'm not going to count him as much, but at least those 4 that will be playing abroad this week, and 3 of those 4 players played last year in the Waste Management Open. So it's a little bit of of a kick down below for the tournament here stateside, but I think still a relatively good field, which is led, or at least your odds-on favorite at this point to win is John Rahm, who's going off, well, depending on wherever you look at 7-1 in a field that includes Justin Thomas, Hideki Matsuyama, Ricky Fowler, Phil Mickelson. I mean, we're talking about some of the who's who.
Yeah, defending champ Gary Woodland. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing to see how far John Rahm has come in such a few short years to be an odds-on favorite in a field really this strong overall, in general. So I think that's kind of fun and fascinating to see. I know we know John, although he's from Spain, he did go to college at Arizona State right there in the area, and they played and practiced quite a bit at TPC Scottsdale. So, having a bit of a home field advantage probably helps. My guess is this probably skews the line a little bit too much, maybe. Towards the favor of John Rahm here, and there's maybe some other names. But as you look down the list, or as you had started, I know you haven't actually gotten all of your bets in. What were some of the names that you kind of were liking to win this one?
I kind of like Billy Horschel at 41. I think there's some value in that, and he did pretty good in the Farmers last week. So
he did. It was nice. Yes. He had a couple of really nice rounds right in the middle there, where he got himself in contention. Yeah, that was nice to see.
Yeah, and of course another name that I always like to mention, of course, Schwartzel at 151. I see a little value in that. But
that's your guy. I know. Well, piggybacking on a long shot here, I also found Charlie Hoffman at 125-1, who he has struggled recently, and I know he had. I'm not sure if it was full surgery or what the deal was, but he did have some off-season procedure done in his wrist or arm or something along those lines. And so
it was in his wrist, I believe. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Did he get his green glove surgically fused to his hand?
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Yes, but
he's going to be the $6 million man.
Exactly, but. This is a tournament. Obviously, he plays every year just based on his chief sponsor being the sponsor of the tournament, and I think that there's going to be a time here, and I'm not trying to pluck a knife out of the air necessarily, but there will be a time where Charlie puts it together, and he usually puts tournaments together early on in the season. He does very well in the desert, West Coast swing, being from this area or this part of the country. And I really, I don't want to miss out on the spot where Charlie puts it together and is, hitting every green in regulation known to man. To me, I want to be at least, I want to have a shot at this. And if you can get something at 125-1 here and maybe find him in a matchup against a relatively unknown or unheralded player, I think that Charlie Hoffman would be some very strong value here in this one as well.
Now, can I ask you a question? Will betting for an edge, the PGA edition, be coming back here now that the PGA is getting into a more full swing?
Yes, we will be bringing it back. It's going to be tailored down, I think, a little bit. I've made the decision to kind of keep the hardcore strategy and or kind of grind. Yeah, not only to myself, not just for that aspect. But I think it kind of gets a little bit the pacing of the articles. It's a little bit slow and methodical, and I think the viewers of however many there are really want to get after the picks. They want to know what it is, the names, and kind of how
that's cool.
We
had kind of go into that direction.
I think it'd be a lot more fun just to talk about that.
Nice too.
The matchup betting, talk about some of that stuff, and just get more towards the actual betting and the actual matchups and trying to win bets. So I'm going to focus a lot more on that for the article perspective. Certainly, we can talk about
the opening articles about the course and the strategy were nice, but now we've got that. We're ready for.
That's right.
Yeah, we're ready to make some money.
Oh yeah, we will be back. We'll be back probably starting sometime in February or March. I'm not really sure, but as the swing of all the big tournaments start to come about, and the Players Championship being in March this year, so maybe that'll be a good time.
Moved up a little bit
absolutely. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. Obviously, we appreciate you listening and tuning in. You can catch all of our podcasts at vegassquares.com. You can catch us on 12 Ounce Sports Radio every Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I want to thank the sponsors, obviously 12 Ounce Sports Radio first and foremost, and also ChaiPoker.com, Eric on the Web Productions, and Vegas Puckline Apparel. A special shout out to all those guys. And before I sign off, you guys got any parting comments, knowledge, wisdom, comments, donations? Other than Go Pats?
Go Cal Van Noy for MVP.
Yeah, don't fuck that.
My last thing, I think we touched on it briefly. If you're a fan of the Rams, I would stop waiting. I would either pick it up at +3, -120 somewhere, or get your 2.5 with maybe a plus attached money line to it, because I think it's only going to go down at most books.
All right, well, you've got it. There's the inside information. Grab the Rams +3 if you like them, because it ain't going anywhere other than back down.
Yep.
So, all right, well, with that being said, for Token Tony, for Tony Johnson, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening in. We will catch you on another one.